Hello, me again. I know it's like fourth or fifth video in just a few days. Sorry, you're a glutton for punishment if you keep watching these videos. But I've been on Facebook really, well, for a while, but on these flight attendant forums since before I got my CJO. And for quite a while, I was really active on some of them, one more than others. And I posted a lot and people recognized me. I would get recognized in airports just from the posts I make on Facebook. And it was cool. But there are some things that I keep seeing over and over again, some topics that I keep seeing repeated that I used to respond to, and now I don't so much because I really get tired of saying the same thing over and over again. And I am not the only voice. There are lots of other people. I think there's like 53,000 members on this one group. There's lots of other people who can share their experience, so they don't need to see my ugly mug every single time. But there's one topic that I keep seeing again and again, and it is a lack of patience, or an understanding in terms of the need for patience in the application process for this job, and for its needs, the need of patience in the job as a flight attendant. So I have a short story, just a little teeny short story, and then I'm going to go into what I wrote, my little notes. I was visiting a friend in the hospital a couple years ago, and I went into the chapel. I'm not a big believer in the big God. I call him or her or whatever. I call that higher power, hey you. That's my name for my higher power, hey you. So I'm in this little church chapel, and it's just beautiful. I'm all by myself. And so I go up in the front, and I sit down, and I look up at that cross shape up there. And I'm just chatting with my higher power. And I start to recognize my lack of patience in general, but in particular around the well-being of this friend I really cared about. I was coming to understand that I was praying for them to get better. But I was recognizing while I was in that church, that little chapel, that my prayers were really more of a demand that my higher power do what I thought needed to be done, and in the time that I thought it should be done. And so I recognized this, and so I sat there and I started to pray for willingness to be patient. I needed to learn patience. And so I was sitting there meditating on my need to practice patience. And you ask for certain things and you get them. You don't always want it afterwards, but I'm sitting there praying for patience, praying to practice patience, learn to be patient. And these two girls come in the chapel, sit 2 rows behind me. There's no one else. It's a big chapel. They sit 2 rows behind me, and they start to sing and chat and laugh and hang out. I became so enraged, so furious. I'm praying for patience. If you haven't figured out the irony yet, I was being given what I asked for. I was being given an opportunity to practice patience. To recognize that I was alone in that chapel, but I wasn't the only person who needed to be in that chapel. And they were doing what they needed to do in that chapel, and that was to laugh, have a good time, and sing. It's taken me a few years to see that, but so this little short video, and it apparently it's not going to be too short because I keep talking, is really about patience and the patience necessary to be a flight attendant. So you applied for your job at Delta or United or whatever 2 weeks ago, and they haven't gotten back to you. So you're on Facebook calling out to other people, hey, I applied 2 weeks ago and I haven't heard back from them. Has anyone else heard back from them? I'm really anxious to get this thing started, and I just Googled how many flight attendants Delta has. And I don't mean to keep picking on Delta, but everyone wants to work for Delta. I Googled how many flight attendants Delta has. In 2016, they received 150,000 applications for the 1,200 flight attendants they were going to hire in 2017. That's a lot of applications to go through. And if someone's upset that they didn't get a notification or email within 2 weeks, being part of that number, you're going to have to start to practice patience. I guess they're looking to hire another 1,000 flight attendants in 2018. And this job has become really desirable. Lots of people want this kind of job because it's fantastic. It's the best job ever. I can't lie to you. But when there's 150,000 people in search for this position, you need to learn to practice patience with the process and understand that it might take a little while for that the applications to be processed. And just be grateful that you didn't get a thank you, but no thank you right away. If you haven't heard anything, no news is good news. When you're getting your 10-year work history done, they're doing a background check. If you don't hear from that, I think it was Sterling, which was the company that my airline used. If you don't hear from them, thumbs up, because if they don't have you cleared, you're going to hear from them again and again and again. Oh, I apologize for this. I cut my finger while I was cutting a bagel. But you've decided you want to work for Delta and nobody else. That's your dream job, and you will not accept anybody else's wings but Delta's. I just told you the odds are pretty slim on getting that job. So I have to tell you to practice some patience. Accept the opportunity to earn the wings from somebody else who you may not think is the ideal airline. Use that time and experience to hone your crafts, perfect your flight attendant skills to be the perfect flight attendant. So when the angels from Delta do come calling, you might be more prepared. So be patient. Patient. Okay, so these are some scenarios that you may need to practice some patience. Being on reserve for anything. With some airlines, I think someone told me with United, there's some people in Chicago that are on reserve since like 1989. They have crafted some pretty serious patience. Being on ready reserve, in my airline, we have to be in the airport for 5 hours when we're on ready reserve. Airport appreciation. Those 5 hours, we're the last man standing for an emergency situation. So if anything really goes wrong and they need someone in an emergency ASAP, we're the people they call when you're on ready reserve. You may not be called. You may be called 10 minutes before the end of your notification period for ready reserve. And you have to scramble and have 15 minutes to get to the gate. You have to be able to sit there in that crew room when there's no one there, with your phone, with your iPad. You just sit there when there's 30 people who are commuting and they're all sleeping. There's nowhere to sit. Everyone's on a computer. You need to sort of craft and perfect the art of patience just being in the crew room. Your flight's delayed for hours or canceled, but crew scheduling hasn't notified you about the delay or the cancellation, because they may need to deadhead you to a different flight, on a different airline or your airline, and they don't know where they're putting you yet. So you have to sit there and wait. And it could be 4 or 5 hours in that crew room, not knowing what's going on. And if you call crew scheduling, they're going to call you and say, hey, we'll let you know when we figured out what we're doing. Patience. You need to be patient. Let's see. Okay. This may or may not have happened. You're on a 5.5 hour red eye from Vegas to Newark. You didn't bring a book. You can't use your cell phone. You can't listen to music. You can't watch a movie. You've cleaned every surface 15 times. The bathroom is done. You've restocked everything. And you cannot manage to hear your fellow flight attendant's breakup story for the 10th time or hear how long her divorce is going to take. Everyone's asleep. Airplane's dark. You either need to practice patience or start to eat everything in that galley cart. I would recommend practicing patience. Snack and beverage. There's those flights where you start snack and beverage service at 10,000 feet and it doesn't end. It just keeps going. You finish, take your apron off, bing, hi, can I have a Diet Coke? Of course. Bing, hi, you know, service just doesn't stop. And you need to be able to walk down that aisle with a smile, with your tray or your cart, as if it was the first time you're serving someone. You really need to practice patience. It doesn't sound bad, but boy, when those services just don't end, it's crazy. Okay, my favorite, you get to a layover after a 12 or 14 hour long duty day, and your name isn't listed on your layover hotel, and you have to call crew scheduling, and you're number 15 on hold. Patience. It's, you know, you're in the Dallas layover hotel and you're in the lobby with your luggage. Everyone else is sleeping and you're kind of just waiting to find out, you know, if you're going to get a room. You're looking, speaking of layers, you're looking forward to your 24-hour layover in Miami. Fun, but the airplane is diverted and you land in Latrobe. You know, so you need to practice some patience. You're non-revving to see family, friends, boyfriend, dog, and the flight's oversold by 2. They're going to risk it and try and get on. You don't. So you have to wait and watch everybody get on that airplane and wait for, you know, your name to pop up, and it doesn't. And so you run over to Delta because you've booked on them and you're number 35 out of 40 and you're not getting on. The life of non-revving, and God help you if you are commuting, you'll practically be a Zen master of patience if you commute. God bless you. Babies crying on board for hours. Patience. The flight attendant next to you is clearly sick. She is sniffling, she's coughing, she's got a temperature, she's a mess. And you're on a beginning of a 3-day trip. And she's afraid to call out sick because she doesn't want to get more points against her. Patience. And Zicam, hand sanitizer, shallow breathing. Let's see, you're flying to Las Vegas on a trip with a bridal party, a bachelor party, a cheer squad, and a tour group of like 60 people who don't speak English. They don't prepare you for that in training. And it'll happen. Patience. So if you can't handle waiting for your application to be processed, you know, after Hurricane Harvey, people were like in a knot. They were twisting themselves in knots because United wasn't getting back to them soon enough. They were handling a hurricane in their hub, you know, but people were still on Facebook going, I haven't heard back from United. I don't mean this to be a rant, but maybe a taste of the reality is that you need to practice patience. I've said it 50,000 times because that's really important. Communication, the airline industry is all about 100% about safety. Well, clearly number one is safety, but communication and patience. And no one talks about it. Really, you hear all sorts of tips and topics about being a flight attendant or getting to be a flight attendant. No one really talks about the amount of patience that's required. Actually, I want to say fierceness. Filmed a video or 2 about the topic. I love fierceness. I love all of you flight attendants that do vlogs, but fierceness is my favorite. Fly with Stella, of course. Wonderful Allie, love her. So practice patience, really. And if you're sitting there in a knot of anxiety over, they haven't called me, my dream airline has not called me, look for your dream elsewhere. I have to tell you, I work for And don't just like sit there and accept it. You know, if you're young, you're going to have decades in this career. But you know, the airline that I work for is my dream airline. I'll get emotional. I work for the perfect airline for me. There is no doubt that I'm in the right place. It's not Delta. It's not United. It's not American. It's not a legacy carrier. It's the dream airline for me. I am never leaving my airline. So if you are unwilling to accept someone else's wings other than Delta or another legacy carrier, this is going to be a struggle for you, and you're going to be waiting a real long time. Again, 150,000 applications in 1 year for 1,200 positions. You're going to have to practice that patience. So again, this wasn't meant to be a rant, and honestly, looking back, it's probably a long rant, but more, I want to say more of an encouragement to really sit there and practice patience, as you have to practice gratitude. And maybe that's another video one day, but I have talked long enough. Again, as always, feel free to subscribe if you still like me after this video. And certainly ask a question, leave a comment, and give me a thumbs up. Not this thumbs up. That one. And I will talk to you later. Fly safe and take care. Bye.